What up, humans and non-humans? It's Two-Armed Axolotl SCB here with another Participation Awards brought to you by the Movie Bin from my local dollar store, which means we've got some winners? And this week, it's the movie Spree. Have you ever wondered what would happen if someone was a little too obsessed with getting viewers? Do you want to see an internet troll get their comeuppance? Well, if you're on the internet long enough, you'll get to see that. But if you want a scary movie a la Dollar Bin to get there faster, this movie might work. Oh yeah, like, follow. You know what? I've decided to give that to Autopie Telephone. But he no longer has a mustache, so losing a point. How dare you? But yes, like, follow, subscribe, ring the bell, grab a cookie, and keep your property values low and your bank accounts high. Let us commence with the Participation Awards. First off, the music at the beginning is too positive considering what the movie is going to be. And I don't mean the happy little elf way. It feels awkward, so that point is out. However, this is offset by a pretty clear indication of how awkward this kid is. It's clear that he's trying to find his voice and hasn't quite pegged down what it's going to be. He tries life hacks, gaming, the usual stuff. He seems to be kind of an amalgamation of several different people that have evolved within the YouTube sphere before it turned into what it is now. I'm not going to point out any specific creators, but many of the ones I'm referring to moved over to YouTube from Vine. There are instances where it looks like they're imitating a particular event in YouTube history, but I can't really nail down which ones those are, and honestly, if someone out there has a far more comprehensive memory of the interwebs, have at it. Point for really capturing how awkward the beginnings of a channel are, speaking purely as an observing third party with absolutely no personal interest in the matter. One of the things pointed out is that this guy has tried for 10 years to gain a following, which hurts to watch, but shows the reality of trying to build an audience and find what it's like to make your channel be unique, while also trying to work around the arbitrary rules set forth by an electronic nebulous overlord that seeks The first mistake I'll say for this character is keeping the name Kirk. Honestly, it's an awkward name. Picking a name or channel brand is hard to do, but it might be what gets it going. While he was changing his content to find his voice or niche, he didn't really seem to be changing the quote, marketable aspects. At one point he has hats, so there's some merch, but that's a bit squiffy. But let's take a moment. Sometimes you have to be honest with yourself. But this channel figured it out. Did I? In all honesty, this channel is more because I enjoy doing it, and I'm pretty sure my friends are tired of hearing me discuss these random topics constantly. But back to our movie. Part of Kirk's deal is that he wants to give hints on how to grow your channel, which feels even more awkward since he pretty obviously doesn't have one.
And the cool thing about Spree is that you're interacting with people all the time. It's amazing for content and for just in general.
Point for awkwardness. One tip he gives is to pay attention to younger users since they are closest to what will likely be your audience. Which feels skeevy, so we're not going to focus on that. But we will get to what starts the whole thing. First, Spree is supposed to be the name of the app in the movie. Instead of Uber, it's Spree. Then later on, instead of Lyft, they use GoGo. Point for staying outside of legal issues, but Kirk decides to do what he calls the lesson. He outfits his vehicle with cameras, and before he goes out, we see him run inside real quick and return with a crystal from his mom. Foreshadowing! Shing, sparkle, sparkle. Point. Bobby is a character that runs his own channel as a gamer and enjoys being a troll, and basically calls out Kirk for not getting it, and it's weird he's trying too hard. Point for pointing out the obvious, but taking it back because Bobby is a piece of crap too.
Tell him, Bobby.
Oh, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you! Oh my fucking god!
He picks up his first passenger who's on his way to a speech, and then we find out who the audience will be, and it's for a particular group that prefers one side of the monochromatic spectrum. I'll be honest, I did not expect that. I actually thought this dude would be some sort of stereotypical nerd, but point for throwing off my expectations there. We get a flashback to Kirk putting something in the water, however, the water results in them no longer being able to breathe or live, so the first passenger drinks the water and gets dropped off somewhere. The next passenger is a real estate lady that is way too attached to her phone, also drinks the water and ends up being dumped in the woods, but Kirk explains how to fend off suspicion by responding to the text message or posting something on their phone so it's less obvious that he's the last person that had contact with them.
Perfect. Rate your driver. 5 stars, I think. And here it just asks you for a tip. Usually I do something kind of in the middle, so I'll leave $2.
Submit. Next to tie up loose ends. Michael says, sorry, can't wait to see you later. What should we tell Michael?
I mean, aside from the fact that it's being streamed live, so I mean, you probably don't want that kind of thing showing up in a court of law, so losing a point for not thinking that through. We get to a new passenger that is clearly an alpha bro, and at this point there seems to be a pattern of passengers that are kind of awful people. However, they get to pick up a comedian named Jessie who is unwilling to deal with their nonsense. Luckily, she does not drink the water, but Mario does, and Kirk leaves them in this weird out-of-place construction area. But he doesn't just leave them there. No. He backs into the dude, runs him over again, and we see Kirk clean off the strawberry milkshake stains? Melted gummy bears?
Carl, what are we standing in?
Would you believe it's strawberry milkshake?
No, I would not believe that.
Melted gumdrops.
No.
Boat nectar.
No.
Some of God's tears.
Bobby starts trolling Kirk for having less than 10 followers, and really at this point in the movie, everyone is essentially just a crappy character, with only Jessie being the one person that's remotely likable. Kirk then picks up 3 people that are out partying, telling them, I know a spot, which should again be a friggin' warning, but no! We want new experiences to post up on Instagram. Okay, losing a point for lack of situational awareness. Look, going out into the world and exploring it is great, but maybe take 3 seconds to consider the whole picture. It's dark, it's nighttime, and they're not all wearing sunglasses, but they're a little tipsy. Oh, and the place? It's a junkyard. But hey, they get to stand out on the sunroof right before they're, shall we say, ended? Carl! Bobby, still being a piece of crap kid, tells Kirk that if no one saw it, did it actually happen? Kirk starts to go a little loopy and expressing that he needs things to be fair and Bobby's audience should be mine, as he gets this glazed look in his eye. I've been around the internet long enough to have seen my fair share of breakdowns from creators freaking out about losing audience and numbers. I'm not going to attach any of those creators in this video, but at least some creators manage to be honest with themselves and adjust. However, most just make things worse. Much, much worse. Now that his switch seems to have gone off in Kirk's brain, he goes over to Bobby's while he is streaming and pew pew. Since it's on a live, Bobby's audience assumes it's fake. It's at this point that being able to read the chat is the most frustrating because there's so much going on. The screens keep changing, the chat moves around, and it just makes my head spin. I realize it's going for a sense of chaos, but at this point, if the chat was more readable, I don't think it would bother me as much. And would y'all look at that? Kirk took over his channel and it fluctuates to about 40k and 60k followers. Kirk starts asking his followers what he should do next, which is never good. Never get advice from your chat. I mean, at least some know how to handle their chat, like Hasanabi. Anywho, Kirk picks up his dad because he needs to see a Korean DJ called Uno. He asks her to put him in a mention, and when the chat points out that she lied to him, he doesn't take it well and that glazed look gets more menacing. In all honesty, those are the people that you should be the most wary of. Once they snap, you have no idea how far they're gonna go. Long story short, he eventually agrees to take her to the LA taco truck, and there ends up being an incident? Pretty sure I can't explain the whole kerfuffle on YouTube. Kirk manages to evade the police and says, I'm unstoppable, right before the car flips. It's basically Titanic in smaller scale. But he ends up at the place where Jessie is performing and she smashes her phone on stage saying that we should all take a break from social media and how it affects us. It's all messed up and it's dangerous, yada yada yada. That's nice, I guess. But I kind of feel like it gets lost in everything since she also goes with what the chat tells her to do later, so losing a point for completely negating the message. Kirk leaves the show in a go-go car since the police have suspended all activities on Spree due to a serial unaliver on the loose.
Kirk, Jessie, your phone, you broke it during the set, remember?
Yeah, I remember.
Of course. Oh my gosh, how could you forget? How could I forget? How could anyone forget? Oh my gosh, I had this like crazy breakthrough today.
Why
too.
are we going east? We need to be going west.
You know what I'm all about now, Jessie? I'm all about love. I'm a man of
You
love.
just pull over here, let me out.
Okay, just listen to me. I'm just trying.
Eventually, he takes over the car because when Jessie gets picked up, surprise! It's Kirk. He's clearly not in a good headspace, and Jessie rightfully realizes she needs to get out of the car and tightly winds her headphones around Kirk, and there's some back and forth. Eventually, she gets control of the vehicle. Kirk looks to his chat to see what to do, and they tell him to run as she looks like she's going to run into him. She runs the car into the house, and Kirk is still trying to unalive her, saying they could have been a power couple, which is just cringy, to say the least. But we get the call back to the crystal at the beginning because his dad asks, "Oh my god, did you unalive your mom?" Because we see that he did do that. Point for bringing it back around? In all this chaos, Jessie is reading the chat and they're saying that Kirk still looks to be alive. But when she finally finishes the job, the chat tells her to take a selfie. This is why I say the moral got negated, because she didn't have to do that. Her whole thing with destroying her cell phone was about not letting social media take control, yet here we are with social media taking control. However, she ends up being a hero, and there's this whole campaign about why they keep the names of the victims circulating but not his, which is what we should do in general. When we focus on who was hurt, it chips away at the notoriety of those who committed the awful deeds. Unfortunately, life is messy, and over time we see how it then changes to almost idolizing this dude, and how a damaging and dangerous mindset can start to encroach from the dark corners of the internet. Overall, 1 point. Weirdly, that wasn't planned, but it kind of worked out that way. If nothing else, the one takeaway from this movie that viewers should have is that we need to be more cautious about the type of messaging and harmful narratives that get spread online. We need to be able to shift our focus from the perpetrators to the victims. We need to stop feeding the trolls and give people another way to look at life when they become consumed with views, likes, and popularity. Because of how this movie ended up, I don't feel like it's appropriate to end this with a funny joke. I'll leave you with this. The internet has some awful stuff out there, but we don't have to keep feeding into it. It's not going away, so let's improve it. Until next time. Rubble, 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 mutiny, 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 rubble, 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 mutiny, 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 mutiny.